All right, we're going to call the meeting to order at 6:30. All stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If you would, roll call, please.
Winchester.
Here.
Ryan.
Here.
Burton. McCanny.
Here.
Kinnaman.
Here.
Mattson.
Here.
I'm here as
And
well.
Collis.
All right, I'd like to make a motion to excuse Derek Burton.
Support.
Motion by Cullis, support by Winchester. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next, the agenda approval. The chair would entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
I'd like to amend the agenda, item 10 under new business, to discuss Charter Township of Holly.
Discuss what again?
Charter Township.
Oh, charter. Is there support?
Support.
Would you now like to make the motion to approve the agenda?
I'll make the motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Support.
Okay, now I know the difference. We made a switch for that reason. Motion by Mattson, support by Kinnaman. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. For those of you in the audience, if you've noticed, we've changed Mr. McCanny and Mr. Kinnaman. That was my doing on purpose because these two have a voice that's so close I can never tell who was making a motion. Now I'm gonna be able to get that. There won't be any question whether it's Kinnaman or Burton. And
Especially when he's not
Sacrifices
here.
we make for our supervisor.
I know. Well, it was getting old because I just couldn't catch the difference, so, anyway. All right, the consent agenda next. All items listed under consent agenda are considered to be routine and non-controversial. They do not require discussion by the Township Board, and they will be approved by one motion. There will be no separate discussion. If discussion is desired on an item, that item will be removed from the consent agenda and will automatically be moved to the last item under new business. Chair will entertain a motion.
I'll make the motion to approve consent agenda.
Motion by Mattson, is there support?
Support.
Support by Winchester. Roll call, please.
Winchester.
Yes.
Ryan.
Yes.
McCanny.
Yes.
Kinnaman.
Yes.
Mattson.
Yes.
Collis.
Yes. Motion carries 6-0. Sorry. Next, we will go on to public hearing for the 2025-2026 Holly Township proposed budget and for the annual redetermination confirming special assessment district for the purpose of fire emergency service and supporting villages.
I'd make a motion to open the public hearing.
Motion
Second.
by Winchester, support by Kinnaman. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We are now open for public hearing. Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak? Lieutenant Beardsley?
On the budget.
About the budget.
This is about this is a public hearing on the budget. All right, thank you. None appearing. Can I get a motion to close?
Motion to close.
Support.
Winchester, Mattson. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, we go on to presentations. On the NACFA Chief Lyle, you want to make a presentation on NACFA semi-annual budget?
Good evening.
so I passed out earlier two handouts. One is our 2024 year-end report. That's just for information only. They both look very similar, but in 2024, that was just something I thought we should have passed out so that if you have a few moments and you want to understand what we did last year, you can do that. So that's just FYI only. What we're moving on to is actually our budget for this year. So typically in years past, we've done a full 12-month fiscal year, and there's been some changes that have made it necessary for us to come up with a different strategy to do this. So what we did this year is typically our budget starts on July 1st, ends June 30th, and we're going to go from July 1st to December 31st this year. In getting to this point, I believe Supervisor Cullis has mentioned in many, many, many meetings, we're trying to negotiate a contract to come up with financials based on tax assessments that we can't get until April, and we need to get a contract hammered out by July, and the timing is just horrible. So at NACFA, thanks to the board for their hard work, we've now shifted everything into this 6-month basket so that we can go forward at the beginning of the calendar year, so I'll be back then with a full 12-month budget. So what that looks like is it's not necessarily just a gazillion divided by 50% for a 6-month budget. Unfortunately, some of the things are prepays that we have to pay at the beginning of the year based on the July July date that we're used to having. So what I'll do is I'll just kind of run through all of this. I put together a little executive summary, which I hope helps. But basically, our total revenues are $1,493,000 for the year, for the 6 months. Our total expenditures are just under that, giving us a $30,000, hopefully, transfer into our fund balance. I say hopefully, okay? Our current fund balance right now is just under $400,000. So it's not great based on, you know, a $3 million typical budget. It's not great. So we're working to get that in a better spot. As we go through and we look at some of the highlights that we've brought in this year, a 5% wage increase across the board for full-time personnel. We brought in short-term disability, which we did not have at all before. We had I know healthcare is a hot topic with everybody in every industry. We had a significant increase in healthcare, and by the time we did the math with a 5% raise, and then if we passed on that cost to our team, they would have received about a 1% raise. So we strapped our boots up tight. We came up with a plan to make that happen where their co-pays would stay the same. And by doing that, we had to remove the hard caps for public contributions to healthcare, which, again, the board was very supportive with that to get to that point. When we look at our revenues as far as grants and whatnot, you know, our core operational funding comes from each township, okay? And I've got a pie chart that explains our revenues, and when you look at our overall operating revenue, each township's contributing about 40%. So the rest of that money, to equal the 100%, comes from grants, cost recovery, and review and inspection that we do up at the Renaissance Festival. So when you look at all of that together, our SAFER grant is going away. That is about a $50,000 hit, for this year. That ends in November, so you know, any of those benefits that we had with the SAFER grant, they will discontinue at that point. So you know, just something that falls off the table, most of that. And this SAFER grant, it was marketed more towards the on-call, paid on-call folks and our part-time people. So it provided a lot of extra training for them, certifications and so forth that we just wouldn't have been able to do as easily as we can with this grant. The biggest part of this grant was also a recruiting and retention tool that we had where we had a longevity bonus that was paid out. and that was to all the part-time folks. So, you know, a fellow like, you know, Randy's in the audience here. He's been around for many hours. You know, he received a nice stipend for his service to the community. Somebody that's been here for just a year did not get that benefit. So it was something that was nice to have, but again, it's not something that we're in a position financially to carry on now that the grant's gone, and that's unfortunately too bad. Our capital funding is not included in this. This is an operational budget only. So this keeps the lights on, guys paid, insurance paid, and those types of things. So when we start looking at the numbers specifically on page 4, again, it just breaks down our contribution of revenues right from the top to the bottom. Each township is required to put in an equal share, so $591,505 from each township. And do you guys want me to go line by line or just kind of give the broad overview? I see. Okay. So again, just to repeat, our general revenues are $1,493,310.00. When we get into our expenditures, I'll just hit the high points here. We pay $64,000 a year in insurance. That's our workers' comp and our liability insurance. So, you know, like there's another pie chart that goes through our expenses as well, just to give you an idea of what the percentage is of our revenue that's going out. Our biggest cost is people. When you look all the way down at the bottom from our personnel list of expenses, you know, you're $1 million, okay? And that's about 70% of our budget. When you look at most service-based organizations, you know, you're 70 to 90% or 60 to 90% of your budget is what you pay your people. You know, and under that, it is our health care. You know, our health care is almost $250,000 a year just for the department. So those are some pretty hefty costs in there. The short-term disability was added. That would come under this caption as well. When we go to page 5, there's really no big increases here. You know, our supplies are $25,000. Our SAFER grant, right now we've got that at $50,000. Again, that goes away in November. Contracted services is one of our next largest hits. That's $84,000. This is where our dispatching and like our cost recovery, we have to pay a company. They do all of our ambulance billing, so we pay a percentage of our proceeds. So all of those things come out of that particular caption. And then on page 7, when we look at here it is. We get down into our operating expenses. This is where, I mean, when you look at fuel, it's $11,000. We spend typically $1,800 to $2,000 a month just in fuel to keep the trucks rolling on the road. Equipment maintenance, you know, that's a pretty small number at $10,000. I guarantee you we're going to exceed that just because we have an aging fleet. Or I'm sorry, it's $25,000. This year we were just over $50,000 in that budget line item. So, you know, again, we start low and we just keep adding in as the year goes by because it's something that's difficult to forecast with an aging fleet. Debt services, we have none. Unfortunately, we pulled all the money out of that caption, even though the stations paid off and the trucks were paid off. We never really kept any money in that budget line just in case we did incur debt or that we could pull back out into our fund balance. So unfortunately, that's at a zero still. And then when we get into purchases, we've got $30,000 in there. So at the end of it all, we're looking for probably a $30,000 return back into our fund balance account, which is again just under $400,000. Now, because some things we just don't know, right? This is a guess. I talked with Jeremy today, and I think we're going to get into trouble with our overtime wages, just based on some changes that have come through. It's a very complicated explanation, but to break it down as quickly as I can is the way the shift schedule works. There's 212 hours in a 28-day period that a 24-hour shift person has available to work, and anything over that is overtime. And some of those calculations can get pretty spicy. There's been a fair amount of lawsuits coming back to municipalities and private entities that use that same schedule. So the long story short is, we took a look at this, and the cleanest, easiest way to do this is if a person works off their normal scheduled shift, they will be paid overtime. So this is going to be a little bit of an unknown. Jeremy estimates he put 25,000 in there for the half year. He thinks we're probably going to at least double or triple that. So that's where we'll pull money out of our fund balance to make that whole when we get to that point. If we looked at this budget as a full year budget, it would be a $2,900,000 revenue budget, which is about what we're operating under today. In the last several pages of this handout, what we have is our actual budget from this year. I just got this afternoon, sorry, and it's got all of our amended line items in it, and we ended up right around $3,080,000 for the year. So that's where we're at. Any questions? I know I kind of whipped through this pretty quick because I noticed there's a pretty full agenda tonight.
When you talk about the overtime stuff, this is due to the law that just got passed in Lansing and how it affects us?
The law in Lansing,
When you're
ESTA,
talking about the overtime, is that the new legislation that was passed?
no. No, ESTA was some of the new legislation. The other was the healthcare that's sitting on somebody's desk and has never made it to the governor. That was for the hard caps 80/20 or opt-out option, Public Act, I can't remember what it is, 125, I don't know. I'll just make,
152?
yeah, sure. It's probably right, actually,
Yeah.
because, getting a little
Just have two
dyslexic.
of the fives,
It
that's
is
all.
what it
Sounds
is,
good,
right?
sorry.
But no, there's really it boils down to if we exceed a standard. Okay, so let's go back to the overtime. That's for a Labor Standards Act. And while we're trying to calculate all of this out and keep track of everybody and how many hours they work or don't work, and did they have a Kelly day? So some schedules are built with overtime in them, some are built with overtime out of them. We try to build our schedules without the overtime in it. So in that 28-day period of 212 hours I mentioned, we actually schedule the guys 208. So they don't automatically hit overtime. So then they have to work 4 extra hours to get into overtime. So, I mean, you can see you just kind of start glazing over and it turns into this ginormous math problem. And then at the end of the day, if a guy wants to go through and figure this out, and if we're off, we owe him. And if we're off more than once and twice and thrice, and that adds up pretty quick. And then everybody's digging into all of their stuff and things and complaints. And so this really is the cleanest way to go. We are not the only municipality that's doing this, okay, or department, I should say. Many of the other departments, when they negotiate their contracts, they negotiate them the exact same way. It's anything off your shift is overtime. And when I started in 2008, full-time, that was actually one of the first conversations I had with the chief is, well, if I'm off my normal shift going to training or working, I would expect overtime. And he says, no, we're not doing that. So we never did. But it's nothing new to the industry. It's just new to us. And as we grow, right, we'll adopt more progressive things that other larger departments do. And at the end of it all, 70% of this is about people, right? It's the people that we employ. They expect, as I do, as an employee, a livable wage, good benefits, a good place to work. And that's what we're trying to do as we move forward and negotiate on both sides. So,
I just want to note that, I think it was last month, we had went over for a couple months Matt's capital asset management plan, and he rated the equipment and how long it's gonna live, and basically he's asking us as a board, and of course Rose Township, that it's up to us to manage how we are going to fund the needed equipment that will be coming. I mean, starting
Yesterday.
right, yesterday, yeah.
Right, so
We had the ARPA funds, we got, that helped a lot.
it did.
A grant, didn't get it, a good
Yep.
grant, but those are gone. So that's something that we need to address very soon.
Yeah, and it's a challenge, right? And we're not the only municipality or the only service that's challenged with this. You know, when I sat down and started evaluating equipment, making the list, checking it twice, and then I looked in the bank account, really all I was doing was putting together a wish list. Because without a fund to support a date of replacement, that's all you have. And, you know, for years and years and years and years and years, NACFA has been funded at the very, very, very bare minimum. Anytime we've needed a major piece of equipment, we've had to go out and acquire debt. The township loaned us $300 and some odd thousand to buy an engine. One of the tankers was, you know, in 2009 or 8 was $360,000. We took a loan from the state bank for that. Another engine we bought, same deal. We went through commercial lending and got another loan. So, you know, it's just been something that we've always done, and it's getting more and more difficult to do that. When we look at the price of a new engine, the village just purchased a truck, and it was, you know, roughly $700,000, and it was not, you know, a top-end, high-end.
It was used, wasn't it?
No, it was not used. That was brand new. So
Okay.
a demo, right, but not used.
Okay.
So it might have been to a couple of different departments to look at.
Got it.
You know, it's like a salesman's demo that
Yep.
they drive around and you get $500 off because it's got 10 miles on it. Right. So same concept with that. You know, it's a good enough truck. It's a good truck. It's just, it's not the top of the line truck. And that's not what we're asking for either. So anyway, you look at that purchase of $1 million, we'll just say by the time we're ready to pull the trigger, you know, that's $60,000, $70,000 a year in a payment if we loan that. There's no $60,000 or $70,000 in here to support that at all. So, you know, how do we go back and do this? The township's contributions have stayed very level over the years. The collection has stayed, it's increased a little bit, you know, it just does, just by the way the math works, but we've never had any substantial forward-thinking planning to fund this at a couple $1 million a year, which is what it's gonna take. And I mean, it's not here, not in this budget, but we need to come up with that funding mechanism. Now, we're still going after grants, you know, don't take me wrong, we're not gonna just give up on all of this. But to me, the climate appears to be there's less grants and more reliance on local people now. Unfortunately, we never really planned for that. So here we are. We've lived on grants for a long time.
You mentioned the fund balance isn't great. It's doable, but not great. What is a healthy fund balance?
So it's at least one time our operating budget in the bank. So if our operating budget is $3 million, we should have at least $3 million in the bank. That way,
So not great is generous.
sure. Yeah, and it's an audit comment that we get every year, is that our fund balance is not where it should be. You know, this isn't anything new. It's not necessarily deficit spending, but, you know, we just have enough there. So, you know, if something happened tomorrow and we had to do a major repair on a piece of equipment, we can cover that. And when I say major repair, you know, you might think $5,000 is a major repair on your car. Put a couple of zeros behind it, right? We're $50,000 probably now for a pump rebuild, and that's something that just happens. You know, if we have an engine, a diesel engine that goes out, that's probably $35,000 just for the engine. So some of our repairs are pretty good size, so you can see that $400,000 doesn't go very far if we really break something bad. You know, a pump controller for the station we had to replace for our well, that was $30,000 the other year. So it's just, it's not good. It's not good. And if we get another 2008, we don't have enough to sustain us through a hard time, either to pay people.
One of the problems when you talk about fund balance is nobody has a definitive answer. If you go to the Office of Management and Budget for the, from government, they'll tell you a healthy fund balance is between 15 and 25%. Well, the problem with that number is when you look at a community like the size of Holly, where we have a smaller tax base, 15 to 25% isn't very much money. If you go to a larger community, a Waterford and Independence Township or something like that has a larger tax base, that fund balance has more money, a sizable amount of money for an emergency that would come up. So that's part of the difference. So that's when it gets more like we in Holly have basically stated that we think it should be somewhere between 50% and 150% on the healthy side. So when you ask that question, what should it be? It's interesting when you talk to the people through the MTA, or if you talk to accounting firms, nobody will ever give you the same answer twice. And part of that reason is, as I said, 15% for one township is a very different number than, the minute we heard 15%, we're like, yeah, there's no way that would work for us.
Right.
But if you've got a $30 million budget, 15% is also all of a sudden a few $1 million. And
Right.
I'd much go into the rainy day with that 15% than not 15%.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
It's one of the issues. When you talk about millages, and we're at about 4.2 for Knoxville, 4.2. When you talk about millages, it's interesting to see what's across the county. And again, it goes off of this tax base. You'll go to some of them and they're at 2.5. I think Milford's at 2.5. There's other ones that are at 3.5, 4, 5. I'm trying to remember when I read the list. Somebody's at 9 mills. Well, again, that depends on the type of department you're
Right.
funding and the community you
Taxable
live in.
value.
They made a mention the other night that Springfield Township's at 3.5, Rose Township's at 3.5. Rose Township's taxable value is about 317 million. Springfield is 885 million. So the same millage in those two communities garners an entirely different amount of money. 317 times 3.5 versus 885
Right.
times 3.5.
Yeah.
So you can see the difference in how it's. The problem is, while we're the lower tax base, they keep charging us the same amount for the fire trucks that those guys over there buy.
Right.
And I say
Well,
that.
and that's in part my question, because we've seen poor planning in other areas, and now it's a huge problem.
Mhm.
And so I don't want us to be in that position, right?
The-
So
the
like,
other-
we
the
don't
other
have
thing
a
that-
capital improvement plan.
Right.
We don't have the healthiest of balances, and this is fine for probably the next 6 months, but we really do have to have a good conversation about, just like we are with the township office and the great planning and fiscal responsibility there, we're gonna have to do the same thing here. So like this, but
So
I just don't wanna
Yeah.
get caught in a bad position.
One of the things that the chief brought up was, you talked about, there's a grading scale that they use on the equipment that we have. Is there a name to that?
It comes actually out of the Department of Public Works, out of their standards.
For who?
The Department of Public Works, out of their standards.
For the state of Michigan or Fed?
One of their associations, boy, you caught me off guard with that.
I'm sorry.
It's like the Public Works Association or something along those lines. Whoa!
Sorry.
Whoa, I feel like I'm at a rock concert.
So we'll bring that to this board in a future meeting.
Sure.
So they can see that. The one issue that I had, it was
He
it
didn't
grades
touch
the
it.
vehicles
He didn't
based on
touch it.
age, mileage. And
I think the
it
the
ages
air did
them
that.
out at a certain point.
I think
Right.
the
And
air
the two
did
new
that.
ambulances we bought are gonna be aged out like next year or the year after. And my concern was that if you think about that same vehicle that we talked about that comes for the same price, at the same time, in our department, what we do about 1,000, 1,200 calls a year.
1,250.
I'm sorry?
1,250 last year.
Okay, so 1,250 calls. When you turn around and look at a department like Waterford or Independence,
Thousands,
Pardon?
thousands of calls.
Right, so that same vehicle that's 5 years old may have 20 times.
Well, it's
so
getting a whole
more
lot more
miles
use.
of
Well,
use
ours-
as opposed to, yeah.
And I said, where that chart that you read doesn't allow for that. It goes so many points for each year of age, so many points for,
Yeah, I mean, it's a weighted scale.
Yeah.
yeah. So you have to kind of weigh that in too. You can't just go, okay, it says done, we gotta get a new one.
Right.
Because obviously you can't live that way out here.
Yeah.
And at the same time, if you take our truck and their truck, if they were bought at the same year, their trucks had a whole lot more
Right.
usage than ours has. So there's a lot of variables.
And a lot of it's, and I don't mean to drone on, but a lot of it has been risk management over the years. If we have a truck that's wrecked and totaled, we were not insured for full replacement value. I say we were not, we are now. So if we wrecked a truck and we only got an agreed value of $300,000 out of that truck and it's $1 million truck, there's no $700,000 here to purchase that new truck again. So we've made a few other changes internally to help safeguard our assets in the event there's a catastrophic failure, right? Our exposure has increased dramatically the last 2 years with all of the construction on I-75 and the pressure it's put on us and our equipment. So, you know, we're making those changes internally as well. So,
The good news on that is, I noticed yesterday they're starting to put down new blacktop from exit 105.
yeah, they're putting away at it,
It'll be done just in time for winter.
right?
Yeah.
Well,
So-
it's supposed to be
Just
done
in
by
time for
September.
what?
Winter.
Winter,
Yeah.
that's usually what it is, yes.
But when that's done, we're all done, because that's,
No, we're not. Roundabouts,
pardon?
roundabouts,
I meant for 75.
yeah,
No, we're never done with road construction.
I know.
I'm just talking about this whole 75
Fair enough.
corridor, which is, let's be honest, that's a major project for this community.
It is. Any more budget questions that I can entertain or answer or take notes and come back with something rather than just make it up?
Is everybody good?
Yes.
Okay,
All right,
thank you for your time.
all right, thank you.
You bet.
From there, we will move on to reports. I will start with Mr. Kinnaman.
George and I both attended, actually, that did get really loud.
Pardon?
That did get really loud,
good.
but it's good so that everybody can hear over the air. Yesterday was a stakeholder meeting for Seven Lakes State Park, and they had several individuals that were there, municipality, and I was there for the chamber and the school district, and did projections and recommendations, and I thought it was a very, very good meeting. They took down some of the ideas, and there is currently a survey available through this month for the public on your opinions and of what you think of the park now and things that you would like to see done and come to the park. And so go online, check out, Seven Lakes State Park. I think it's just at,
Must be the microphone. Go ahead. We're just commenting, there's some noise coming through.
I know it's changed. It's
It's fine.
michigan.gov/Seven Lakes or something like that. It is the website, is the exact page to go on. You can find that survey there. They've also shared it on their Facebook page, so you can find it on the Seven Lakes State Park Facebook page as well. Go on and fill that out. They said they've already had over 360 responses in the first part of the month, so that's good. But the more input they have, the better. And later in the fall, they will do a public participation similar to what we did already. for the general public to come and participate in too. So watch for that. They're kind of working on a master plan long-term, and this is part of that process, kind of like the way we work through a master plan and then do, public, present it to the public for input and things. And so that's what to watch for in the fall. Speaking as the CEO for the chamber, we have some events coming up. We have 2 ribbon cuttings this week. Tomorrow, we are doing,
Keep going.
It's like class, you guys are being rude
it
about
keeps distracting me, though, from where
Sorry.
I'm going.
Sorry.
The first ribbon cutting is in the township. It's Michigan Laser Engraving. They have moved across the road. They were in the Seven Lakes Party Store Plaza. They are now in the Crown Point Plaza. And so tomorrow at 11 o'clock, we're doing a ribbon cutting for them. Everyone is invited to ribbon cuttings. The other one we are doing is on Friday at 5 o'clock, and it is for Studio Pinky. They do painting parties, and they are next door to Little Caesars in the other half of that used to be an insurance agency. Saturday, we have our food truck rally on the north end from 5 to 10. From 7 to 9, we have a live concert from Stardusters, a large band, big band type music, swing dancing, and we have a good group of food trucks coming out. This year we have shifted into what years ago was the lawn and garden area for the store there, and so we've moved just a little bit. That was because there were things planned for the parking lot that have not started yet. Several months ago, the Village Planning Commission approved a Scooters Coffee drive-through to go in that parking lot, and they were expecting it to begin by now, and it hasn't, and that would affect where the fireworks tent went, which affects where our event takes place. So we shifted a little bit for our event. We also have a breakfast next week, not on Friday. Our monthly networking breakfasts, they are open to the general public more than just members. It does cost you more to do that as a non-member, but you are welcome to attend. We're going to hear from Maryville Retreat Center this time, that is out in Rose Township. So those are the next couple of things we have coming up.
Okay, does that complete your report?
Sure.
Okay. Next, I'll turn to Trustee McCanny.
So the Planning Commission contingently approved the Renaissance Festival's special land use permit. The notable changes was we didn't have anybody complain. Typically, yearly, we have residents of the area's roads surrounding complaining about traffic congestion and being blocked in and can't get out, and some serious events that had to be done. We added into their special use permit the hiring of a professional parking company, and they redesigned and retooled the parking area and have greatly improved the traffic pattern around the situation. But nobody was there to complain. I really didn't know how to act. So we approved their contingencies, and it looks like they're on track to finishing most of them. So it should be good. So we'll have another Renaissance Festival this year.
So I will tell you and the public, that is something we've worked on for a couple of years. Both myself and Supervisor Bob DePalma, who's now retired, Karen Winchester was out in Michigan State Police, Oakland County Sheriff. We had met a couple of times and worked on a traffic plan. And through those meetings, they were made to hire a traffic management company for their parking area. That was a big part of the problem, was getting the cars off the road. And they added another driveway, and all of those things come together, have made a dramatic change up there. So that's good news. And I say that because a lot of people don't realize all the stuff that goes on behind the scenes to get us there. Thanks to the state police and the Oakland County Sheriff for their input in being a part of those meetings, because it really made a major difference on getting our point across to the management of the Renaissance Festival. So, Mr. Mattson, your report?
I moved mine to new business, so. I'm good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Treasurer Ryan?
I have nothing.
And Clerk Winchester?
Nothing.
Okay, so, well, two of the things I was gonna report on happened to be items number 9 and 10 on the new business, so I'll hold that off. Meetings with Riverside North Developer have continued. I've met on the site with them. I've also been on site with the HOA and their management company. The attorney has put together, Lisa, would I call it a letter of understanding between the township and the developer? Lisa?
I'm sorry.
Okay. In my report, I was saying that we have been working with Riverside North on the development over there. And I said, with the help of our attorney, we've put together, would we call it a letter of understanding?
The agreement?
Yeah.
No, I mean, it's a contract, it's an agreement that we put together.
Okay, I was looking to what you wanted me to call it. I didn't know if it was a consent agreement or it's just a contract.
Yes.
Okay, so anyway, they've got it in their hands, they've been looking at it, they had some questions, we went over it, we've met. I will say they've been very good at staying in contact and meeting with us, and so.
Does that include like deposit balance and stuff, like as far as like getting projects done? 'Cause-
Yep.
Okay.
Well, there's X amount of dollars in the bond money. It's not enough to complete the whole thing, so that's why we have to keep working with them. But it's all spelled out in that letter. And
Does that contract come before us for approval?
yep,
Okay.
when we get it worked out with them, it's in the draft form from us to them now.
Yeah.
We're waiting for them to,
Back and forth and
Yep.
figure out something.
and as soon as it's
Yeah.
ready, we'll have it and it'll be here. Okay. Also, I wanted to say, I've met with Jane DeSessa, the Parks Chair, and I'm glad to hear some of the things that the parks are working on, the short-term and long-term plans they're doing. In the budget that's on this agenda tonight has an earmark for hiring an attorney, which I think is a major step forward for the parks. So I've been pleased to see the progress that they've been making since they've been there. Their meetings are online now, thanks to James Wright and his work. And then the last part of my report, and Richard, I apologize, but that was the information I was getting from Karen, is it's my understanding that tonight is Diane's last night. So we want to thank you for the work and effort you've done over the past few years, and good luck on your next endeavor. So,
Well, thank you. Yeah.
with that said, I will move on to public comment on agenda items only. Members of the public can address the board on agenda items only once recognized by the supervisor. Comments are limited to a maximum of 3 minutes. The board may extend this time by a majority vote. Prior to addressing the board, members of the public should state their name and address for the record. A second public comment is available after new business for all other comments. Thank you for your cooperation. Anyone from the public wish to address the board at this time? None appearing. Let me ask First Lieutenant Birdsley. Yes, sir. Are you here for the complete night, or would you like to take the podium now? I don't want you to have to get called. Pardon? Okay. Well, my concern was that you get a call and have to run out. You're good. Okay. All right. Thank you. Okay. From public comment, we will go to old business. There is no old business because the rezoning for Isaacs has been moved to new business because there are some changes in that. So I'm going to turn that over to Karen Winchester.
No, Actually, we'll turn that over to
Or
Alexis.
to Alexis, I'm sorry. Alexis, if you can introduce yourself to
Sure. Hi, my name is Alexis. I serve as the Township's planner. I'm actually going to plug in so I can pull up the plan in case we have questions.
We're gonna,
Oh, yeah.
we're either gonna have to put the mic in your hand because you're
Yeah.
so soft-spoken. Mike,
No,
Mike.
no,
Mike, the light.
They turn
No,
that off
not
too.
that.
It's cold up here. That's Sarah.
do you want me to turn them down?
I'm freezing.
You're freezing?
I'm
Only on
ice
72.
cold.
Really? Is it blowing
Yes.
right on you?
I have no idea. It feels like that.
I'm sitting in short sleeves and I feel pretty good.
Okay, would you like me to begin? Okay. Good evening. Thank you for having me tonight. If you recall, this came before you at the March meeting. It was tabled, but like Supervisor Cullis mentioned, we've now since drafted a conditional rezoning agreement. This is standard practice for processing a conditional rezoning. Now you have everything before you tonight and can make a final decision, whereas last time we were going to have to come back with the agreement. I'm happy to sort of give an overview of the process so far, but I know that we've already talked about it a bit, and so I want to focus on the questions that we had at the last meeting that came out. So just as a brief overview, we have a proposed conditional rezoning of this parcel. It sits just north of Grange Hall, on the corner of Grange Hall and Fagan Road. The parcel is contiguous over the road, and this was part of one of the concerns that came out of last meeting. The area of this parcel to the west of Fagan is already zoned SR, suburban residential. So the property is split zoned as it stands today. The area all to the east of Fagan is currently zoned AGRE. So the applicant who's here with us tonight, if you have questions, is proposing a rezoning for that eastern area to SR. So it would all become zoned SR. However, the conditional part of this is specific to that area to the east of Fagan. So on the east side, it's about 13 acres total. And in terms of the road, we did make contact with the road commission, and they had sent over this map here, which shows that they were fully aware that the road goes through the parcel. This boundary is showing the property before it was split, but right here, this line, as well as all of this area, is the property as it stands today. And what they explained to us is that this specific roadway stretch, they have essentially the right to use by user statute. And so what that means is because this has existed and been used as a road for so long that it can continue to be used as a road. So there's no documented easement, which is typically how you would see something like this. But they shared no concerns over the fact that this is how it stands. So that was one of the things we wanted to clarify, as well as there was mention of possibly a historic cemetery on the site, somewhere maybe in the southern end. Matt from NACFA was able to send us a historic document specific to that cemetery, and through review of that by the applicant's surveyor, we were able to confirm that the cemetery is not on the site, so that's also no longer an issue or concern.
When
And-
you were able to confirm that it's not on the site, at the same time, were you able to confirm where it actually is?
Yes, so to an extent, the record of this cemetery is a very old, had been photocopied many times, so it is, parts of it are illegible, but we can get you that information. I think Karen has it, but you know, the specific extent of it may be difficult to determine, but we have a general idea.
Okay, the reason I ask, there were actually some people that through conversations that remember back in the day,
Okay.
headstones somewhere.
Yeah.
But nobody was able to go, you know, right
Right.
here. So I was just curious.
Yeah. So, and then, yes, please.
Wasn't it determined that it is on NACFA property? Is it on your property?
No,
No?
Okay,
yeah, we checked that before they built, or before they even
okay.
received the property.
And so, going back to the question about the road, one of the questions that came out of this whole conversation was, are the acreage totals for each of these parcels, including the road and the right-of-way? The simple answer is yes. The total acreages you see here do include that portion of the road and then the little bit of area next to the road which encompasses the right-of-way. However, through calculating the acreage minus that 33-foot wide right-of-way, if in the future, at this time, the applicant is not proposing dedicating that right-of-way to the road commission, if in the future they sought to do so, the lot area minimums, which are 1.5 acre minimums, would not dip below that. So there shouldn't be a concern there in terms of creating a nonconformity. These are all well over 1.5 acres on this side of the road here. And then this one is the smallest at 1.98, but still has enough room to stay over that minimum.
Can you state the right of way to the road commission thing again? I'm sorry, I just want to make sure I understand.
Yeah, so if in the future, as of right now, Mr. Isaac, the property owner, technically owns the right-of-way. If he or future owners of these parcels wanted to dedicate that 33 feet to the road commission, so essentially give them the road that they own or operate and maintain, it wouldn't create non-conforming lots.
Gotcha.
So we can't necessarily require that they would dedicate that right-of-way. In the long term, it's a cleaner situation between the road commission and the property owners, the township, but it's very common to just have the road commission have easement access.
Got you. The way I heard it phrased, at least the way my mind interpreted it, was like not going to give right of way to the road commission. So it's like you're going to have to maintain your own little slat of road in front of your house or what.
No, yeah.
That'd be, I don't know how sellable that would be, but yeah, an easement for use and everything, that makes sense, obviously.
So one of the concerns we had, you've answered in the respect to lot minimums, and was the road making part of that actually, was it necessary for the road to be there as part of the lot in order to meet the minimum requirement? The other concern, have we changed the configuration of the lots from the original proposed plan?
In what manner, I guess?
I thought that the property on the west side of Fagan Road originally was part of the lot across the street in one of the drawings I had seen.
You're referring to this one right here being a part of, on this side of the
I
road?
thought in an original proposal that was gonna be one lot on both sides of the street, but that's not the case now. Okay.
I don't know, and I don't know that that ever was proposed. The parcel as it stands today is contiguous over the road. And to speak to the procedure following tonight, once the conditional rezoning agreement is signed, executed, the applicant, the property owner, will still have to go through several additional steps to bring this to fruition. So, Karen, did you happen to include my review from this in the packet tonight?
Mm-hmm.
So this is the review that the Planning Commission saw, and To touch on their review of this, we did conduct the required public hearing. We didn't have any comments of note other than neighbors in the area interested in getting a gas line, which it's unrelated to this, but no concerns there, and they did recommend that the board approve this. It's supported by the master plan, and again, to speak to the procedure following this, they will still have to go through site plan review. It will be developed as a site condo, so all of these will become part of a little HOA, basically. And so there are still, this is says preliminary, because once they get into actual site plan review and developing a full site plan, some details may change slightly, such as where are the homes actually going to go. We have building footprints, but no structures, obviously. So there are further details that will be determined through that process. And so I'm happy to take questions or talk more to the overall proposal, but because we had gone over it before, I didn't want to waste your time.
Does the board have any questions?
No?
I might ask, when you're considering like a change like this, is this not a good time to solve the road issue with it becoming or somehow being turned over to the county road commission? Through sale or however that works, but is this not a good time to make that happen, just as a
So I will mention as well that with a conditional rezoning, specifically in state law, it is clear that all conditions must be offered by the applicant. So the township is not able to require certain things, but that would be a great question for the applicant in terms of why they aren't choosing to pursue that right-of-way dedication now, but so I just can't really speak to that.
Sure. I'm not meaning it as a, as a request, but as a question,
Right.
Well, and you did mention earlier that once the lots were split, the individual property owners could do that dedication. And at that point, it would make more sense to do it now while it's all under one person than
Right.
to have 6 individual people do it.
Right.
Just a comment.
It may just be another step in the process, having
Yeah.
to go in front of the road commission.
Mr. Isaac, did you want to?
Yeah, that's what my surveyor, we've talked through this, and he said that would be kind of part of their not the planning, but the site condo
condo,
process is that we would walk through that, and that land would be given over to that as part of that. He said that's typically kind of what they do in these sorts of situations, and so that's kind of what he recommended was to do that at that point.
Gotcha.
So
It's probably the easiest way to clean it all up in
Yeah.
one
yeah,
place.
Yeah.
it's part of the plan. But
As opposed to, like she said, each one has to do it individually. It's like, oh my goodness.
Oof. Yeah, and you get one guy in the middle that does,
Yeah.
and none of the rest of them do, and,
Right.
it just makes it even more muddy,
Yeah, that's what he said. He said
So we plug the road,
Alexis
pick the blade,
alluded to,
side back out, pick it
there's
up,
several
side back.
steps of the process,
You
and
get this
this
one,
one
I
is
go
the
back.
first one.
Sure,
So
thank you.
Thank you. Board, are there any more questions for Alexis?
Okay,
All
thank
right.
you.
Chair would entertain a motion.
I would make a motion to approve the Holly Township amendment to the zoning map of the Holly Township Code of Ordinances, Chapter 32, and the conditional rezoning agreement for Michael and Elizabeth Isaac.
Is there support?
Support.
Motion by Clerk Winchester, support by Trustee Kinnaman. Any further discussion? None appearing. Can I have a roll call, please?
Yes.
Burton. Mattson.
Yes.
McKinney.
Yes.
Kinnaman.
Yes.
Collis.
Was that, oh, did she say Cullis? I didn't hear Cullis. Yes. Did you get the vote? You voted?
Yes.
All right, motion carries 6-0.
Yeah, I get laser focused at work.
I
My
know,
CEO
it's-
left, and 5 hours later, I was like, where is he? He was gone.
Well,
Small office.
I heard her call Burton, and I had to back my hash mark up, and I got lost. Well, because she called Burton, and it's like, wait, he's not here, so, but
Yeah.
we're good, so the motion carries 6-0. All right, congratulations, sir, that you got through that hoop.
Congratulations to us, too. It was a very
For all
painful
part, well, it was a
process.
very
Step
unusual
one of many.
circumstance. I still remember the look on your face when he mentioned that you had a cemetery up there. And then I had talked to people through the Historic Society, and they were like, oh yeah, there used to be headstones out there, they buried it, and, you know, and people in this town. We have a lot of 5th, 6th generation families in this town, and they didn't just remember the cemetery, they remembered the people that were buried there. So, or at least the family, I should say. But anyway, all right, we will move on to item number 2, proposal for zoning services and fee increase beginning July 1st, 2025. Karen.
Alexis. Thank you.
Thank you. So
I delegate.
that's right. So over
I'm trying to delegate.
exactly.
That's why we're here.
Yes. Over the last, I'd say, year and a half, I've been working with Karen as the township planner, and looking back over historical records over the last 10, 11 years that we've been working with the township, McKenna has been working with the township. The last 2 years have been busier than any of the previous 10. And so as more requests for development, changes in zoning, planning long-term have come up, Karen has become very overloaded in terms of capacity. And so one thing that McKenna offers are on-site office hours. That's the bulk of what is in this proposal tonight. So what that will look like is I will actually be coming into the office at least once a week. We can determine as we move forward the way that this is set up. If we start with a half a day once a week, and that's fine, then we can continue on with that. I'll be sort of taking on the zoning administration duties that Karen has been handling. And if we decide that we're busy enough when we need me here a full day each week, we can shift to that, but it's built to be flexible to the township's needs. So that's why it's built as a professional hourly service rather than a change to your retainer. And what will perform while we're in office hours, if there's no one coming in asking questions, if there are no phone calls, is basically just helping to organize things, update and modernize the overall development process. So updating applications, getting things up on the website in a timely manner, and making sure that things are transparent for the public. We will interface directly with applicants, which we already do. It's over the phone and over email, which can sometimes slow things down. And so being able to come here in person, we can start sharing with the community that the planner will be in on Monday afternoons or whatever day we decide, so that we can have a closer connection with applicants and overall just make the development process more efficient. And so I'm happy to answer questions on that, and I just wanted to touch on the development review fee increase. This is something that with the contract with McKenna, we have not increased since the original contract in 2014. And so by increasing this, this is a pass-through fee for the township. This is what the developers pay or the applicants pay to have their requests processed. And what with our current fee schedule happens is we run through that small fund, and then Karen has to continually ask for additional funds in the escrow account so that we can continue to work with the applicant. And so by increasing these review fees, we'll have a modernized, this is our base review fee schedule that we've been putting in place in communities that we're signing contracts with in 2025. So this is kind of our standard rate that we suggest to municipalities. This will give us more base time to go through a review for a site plan, work with the applicant, ask them questions, and if we still need more money, then we can always do that through the escrow process, but it will make things more efficient by not having to do that so frequently. So I'm happy to answer questions on this. Yeah.
Questions from the board? I have a couple.
Sure.
You'll be here in-house. Will you still keep separate records as to what charges should be paid for by the developers and for those meetings?
Yes, great
Yeah.
question.
We currently pay you an additional fee for being the zoning administrator. That will stop and that fee will then go here.
It won't stop right away until it's taken over 100% that I'm not here during the rest of the time, because I'm gonna have to take everything.
There's
for
a
the-
transition period.
Well,
Right.
right,
Do we have
or
that?
That-
we have,
That half day will shift?
well,
kind of
I'm
thing.
doing it all the rest of the time except for when she's here.
Sure.
And the reason for the proposal of a half a day is because we weren't quite sure how much time we really would need. Because we've not done office hours here before, it's just hard to say. We don't want to lock you guys into a retainer that says, well, we're here once a week for a full day, and then there's not enough work to fill that time.
Right. No, I understand. I'm just trying to understand as we do the budgeting and so forth, how that transition's going.
Well,
I
we had
didn't-
budgeted for an entire full-time position for
Yes.
zoning and code, so I think this will be paid for with that
Out
money.
of the
Yes.
fund until we
Yes.
get that person.
I'm
Because
just
we were
asking, these are
thinking about
questions.
bringing a person in-house. Hopefully this will work and,
Not have to bring in a person and
yes,
go this route. So we
Yes.
already have a salary set aside for this labor.
yes.
So is this more code development or code enforcement?
No
This
code.
is
Separate
zoning.
conversation.
Correct.
This is
Okay.
zoning.
Right.
Okay. Well, he brought up the word code, so,
That'll be number 3.
okay,
That's the next item on the agenda.
there we go.
The position we had budgeted for was supposed to be zoning and code combined.
Right.
And so now we're splitting it, basically.
Well, it's both McKenna.
Oh, just separate. Okay,
And to
Thank
be
you.
clear, the code enforcement services are not something that I'm trained for. So, and the positions that we'll be filling, mine will be taking Karen's duties, and then I believe it's Amy who will be leaving towards the end of this month. That service that she was providing, those tasks she was doing, will be performed by our building department. So it is a separate, it'll be a different person, a separate
Mhm.
department within McKenna, but we've got Jim here tonight from our building department to speak to that.
Well, and then I want to say too is, so, because it's a small amount for me to provide those services, I did not do enforcement, because that's a big one. So code enforcement will only be doing the general ordinances, so it's gonna be a tiny piece. Where now the zoning, and that will come, the zoning, enforcement will go back to the zoning administrator, which she'll pick up, but the transition, I'll have to work with her on the enforcement part of it, so that we can get policies and procedures and all that in place. And then the time will increase, or I keep some of those duties. So we're not sure really how it actually looks at this point.
Okay. It's something,
It's a start,
it's something
Right.
we've needed to do for a long
long
time.
time, yeah.
And,
Well, another thought that just prompted, your statement prompted was just, as far as like transitionary planning, in 25 years when you decide to stop running, But we'll have someone, rather than it's like someone gets elected and they have to come in and you're
Yes.
not,
We can't do that, yeah.
you're gonna have someone, the plant, even if it's not you or whoever, whoever, will have some sort of,
This has been hard for
Hand
Karen, and I
off.
give her
Correct.
credit for
Yeah.
making this move forward. It's taken some time, but she's
I
there.
have so much on my plate, I just can't
yeah.
keep up anymore. And I'm, you drop things and you make mistakes and it's crazy.
Right.
Yep.
And now you'll have Sony be able to pass off your least favorite thing to do too.
Yeah, actually, I like this part.
So just to give you an idea, when I came into office, we had, the first year I was here, we had 15 permits in building. And that was all we had. And then we were up to 300, 400.
Mhm.
But just to give you an idea, I just was talking to somebody yesterday, and South Lyon has 10,000 permits
Holy smokes.
down there. Is that one of your, you serve them?
Mhm.
Yeah, I saw you smile when I said that. But I mean, put that into perspective. That's why they have an entire department that
Yeah.
handles this stuff. But that's the difference that we're looking at.
Yeah,
But we're,
we did really good during when it was slow coming off of the 2008 and
Yeah.
through quite a few years. And just now, it's just really booming.
yeah, and Christie does a great job. She handles all those building permits and the builders and the contractors coming in. And and I'm gonna defend my staff because from time to time, we always have that group of naysayers that like to attack and say, well, they only work 4 days a week, they're only there this much. Christie's here on a Friday, she's here on a Saturday when she has to meet a contractor. For election, she has to go to the county, and those are hours that you don't see or hear because they're after our hours or they're separate from our hours.
Same with us.
And Karen will be in here on a Friday or Saturday working on permit. There isn't a Friday or Saturday that I don't end up doing something, if not a quarter of the day or a week ago Saturday, I finally, my phone rang at 7:52 and I think I left at 3:40 in the afternoon. That was a Saturday, and it happens, but as things are popping up and coming up, and when you get a phone call and say, hey, Pete and I are the developers and we're gonna be out there today, I know it's short notice, but can you meet with us? Well, we wanna keep the ball moving.
Right.
Mhm.
And Riverside North's been an issue, so yep, I'm gonna meet with you. And, drop what you're doing and head out there and then I stayed home on Tuesday and mowed my lawn instead, because it didn't get done. Anyway, we appreciate you and what's going on here.
Sure.
Are there any other questions from the board? All right,
Okay,
Chair will
thank you.
entertain a motion.
I move to accept the proposal for zoning services and fee increases beginning July 1st, 2025 from McKenna.
Motion by Ryan to
Second.
approve the zoning services and fees. Second by Kinnaman. And this is a contract, so go ahead and give me a roll call.
Ryan,
Yes.
Mattson,
Yes.
McKinney,
Yes.
Kinnaman,
Yes.
Winchester,
Yes,
Hollis.
Yes. Motion carries 6-0.
thank you, everybody.
Now,
I
number
was
3.
wondering when the meeting would happen where my full name was part of the roll call. Ryan Matson.
Yes.
Okay, so we'll move on to number 3, proposal for code enforcement services beginning July 1st, 2025. I'm gonna cut the middleman out and go right back to Alexis, and you brought somebody with you.
Okay.
Have a nice night. I'm just going to hand it over to Jim, who can speak more to the services.
You wanna introduce him?
Yes, Jim Wright.
I'm the senior building administrator for McKenna.
Okay, if you can get over to the microphone, we appreciate it.
Well, good evening, everyone. As I mentioned, I'm the senior building administrator for McKenna. I've been a building official for 27 years. I've been involved in code enforcement for 35 years. I was the gentleman that brought the building services to McKenna. And as you've probably seen the proposal, we're throughout many communities throughout Michigan and Ohio. We've been asked to help Holly Township with code enforcement, and that's exciting. Like I said, I've been doing it for many years. We have several of our code enforcement officers are providing that services for many communities. When we come in to do code enforcement, we like to tailor our code enforcement to what the needs of the community. Every community has its little idiosyncrasies, things that they really like to focus on. At the same time, have a good relationship with the residents and the business owners. And I've found over the years that code enforcement, we're not dictators, we're there to help the residents and help the businesses to bring their properties and equipment into compliance with the codes and ordinances of the township. And that's always my goal, to develop a good relationship with the residents and with the business owners, rather than be someone that's there slamming the hammer down and writing tickets all the time. That's not the goal. You know, we don't want to do that. We want to have compliance.
Specific process.
Right.
Yeah.
So, if there's any questions as far as what we can provide, what our strategy is, one thing I was looking through the ordinances already, and I see that Township of Holly has adopted the 2009 Property Maintenance Code. And that might be something that as a board you may want to consider going forward and maybe adopt a newer version of that, maybe the 2023 or 2025 version of the Property Maintenance Code. It might be something you want to look into.
We can take that on your recommendation.
It'd be a good idea just to bring you up to the standards that a lot of other communities have. Building codes, you're required to enforce the codes that the state has, but the property maintenance code is something that you adopt yourself. It's not something that's a requirement. So right now, you're enforcing the 2009.
We're gonna look into that, because I think we've already updated that in a past meeting.
Well,
But we'll
that's a
look
good
into
thing.
that.
But like I said, if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them as far as what we can provide. If we are accepted as your code enforcement officer, I'd love to be able to sit down with all of you and find out what your thoughts are, what we'd like to concentrate on, and how we can help the township in the enforcement process.
Okay, does the board have any other questions?
One that just came to mind related to the last one as well, is this something that we should have done like a request for proposal, like other companies that do these similar services, the compare prices, or because we're already contracted with McKenna, that's part of the service and the fees that we already.
Well, and it's just like if I call Lisa and we have a specific issue we're dealing with, and it might not be her expertise, she turns it over then to somebody else in the office, and this is a simple thing. These are services, we've been dealing with McKenna, these are services available, and we've decided that now, with Amy leaving, this is a time to move in that direction.
Gotcha.
Expanded services through
Yeah, just want to make sure we're
already
doing,
contracted.
don't leave a stone unturned, and we go, oh, we didn't do that, so, okay. But I like your individualized approach.
It's important.
Yeah.
It's important. You know, sometimes you have these code enforcement gentlemen or ladies that look at it and they enforce all across the board. You know, if you have a community like Bloomfield Township or Birmingham, where you have residents of high income, they expect things a lot different and are able to afford for things like that. But then if you have other communities that aren't at that income level, to try to do the same type of enforcement, peeling paint, a little piece of paint coming off their house, they go and slap a red sticker on their door isn't appropriate in many communities. Where in some, it's a demand, so that's how we have to really look at it.
We are a rural community.
Yes.
And we have some different issues out
Yeah,
here.
exactly.
I don't know whether you know this or not, but we just recently, within the last 6 months, went from a reactive code enforcement attitude to being proactive.
That's what you want.
Because we've got some issues that we no longer felt we could wait until somebody raised a flag, that we had to start addressing. As we're dealing with one of the properties, I know you've heard us report on that. So far, on that particular property, we've taken over 80 tons?
I think it's 80 tons.
I think it's over 80 tons, and they're projecting yet to be another 40 tons out there. And it comes from years and years and years of just
the claim.
Accumulation.
Well, and that was our
Accumulation.
second time. We did it through, a
Yeah.
court judgment before.
So it's, and for the longest time, we were, if nobody complained, we didn't worry about it, but, with new technology and aerial views, and we started seeing things, it came to the part where we said, we need to start moving on some of this stuff.
Yeah.
I think with the passing of was it Jim Clark? Ed Clark?
Oh, now you confuse me.
Anyway,
Mr. Clark, yeah.
Just with Mr. Clark, and what they've been finding out there, that's one of the reasons we've had, I mean, you know, there were acres of old tires and that kind of stuff, and they're still pulling stuff out of there. So, you know, we'll have some good conversations.
That's what we look forward to.
Well, and
Those
that-
type of conversations.
Code enforcement, when I came in, we started going through some older records on some things, and I'll never forget the day I pulled the one file out, and it said that the supervisor of the code enforcement met with the particular resident and worked things out. Didn't tell you what we did,
Right.
it just said we worked things out. Nobody has any idea what that even means, so.
You know, one thing also with the code enforcement is developing a good rapport with the township attorneys, because, you know, we have to work in hand with attorneys who come to that. And a lot of times there is a process you have to follow as far as notifications. You know, when you start getting into court, the judges are always gonna side on the property owner. The judges are elected officials, they're gonna side on the property owner. So when you go through this code enforcement process, you have to have a proper notification system set up, record retention. And those are the things that I look forward to be able to bring to the township, so that when we do have court cases, we're able to go with the right documents, the right notifications, the right photographs.
Well, and I will tell you, Amy Hillman has been very thorough in her job, working with Lisa Hamani. She's very good. We developed an understanding when I first came here. I said, your job is to keep us out of trouble.
That's
And
it.
she's been very good at that. So,
And I look forward to working with her and continuing that process, so.
all right. Any other questions from the board? None appearing, then I would, Chair would entertain a motion to approve.
I would make a motion to approve the proposal for code enforcement services from McKenna beginning July 1st, 2025.
Motion by Winchester to approve code enforcement services beginning July 1st, 2025.
Support.
Support by Mattson. Is there any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mattson,
Yes.
McKinney,
Yes.
Kinnaman,
Yes.
Winchester,
Yes.
Ryan,
Yes.
Hollis.
Yes. Motion carries 6-0. Number 4 under new business is the 2025-2026 NACFA semi-annual proposed budget. Is that the right term, semi-annual? I guess. Proposed budget.
Semi-annual is
Or
half
you
a
can
year.
say half, you can say half year if you didn't like that.
Yeah. As long as we get, bottom line is it's a proposed resolution 2025-09. It's the budget year that goes from July 1st through December 31st. So we can get on track with a calendar year schedule for the fire department, which works much better for their programming than the one we've been at.
I move to approve the 2025-2026 hang on. NACFA semi-annual proposed budget, proposed resolution 2025-09.
Is there support?
Support.
Support by Mattson. Is there any discussion?
I think it's fine to get by for the 6 months, but I think we need to evaluate what January and how we start to move them into a healthier direction.
All right. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
McKinney,
Yes.
Kinnaman,
Yes.
Mattson,
Yes.
Winchester,
Yes.
Ryan,
Yes.
Hollis.
Yes. Motion carries 6-0. We will go on to New business number 5, Holly Township Parks proposed budget, proposed resolution 2025-10. Let me start out by saying I appreciate so much the work you guys have done on the budget. This is the best looking budget we've seen since I've been here, and that's 9 years, so we do appreciate that. Both Mary Blanchard and Jane DeSessa.
Thank you very much. And this is the second time we've appeared. And last time there were a couple of things that the board wanted us to address. I think we have done that. And in the budget that had been proposed, particularly Treasurer Ryan had requested that we include the actual numbers of the budget, and our bookkeeper, Rachel Schroeder, did take care of that for you. And I would like to read for the public the letter that we have included. And this was dated June 11th, 2025. Dear Honorable Holly Township Supervisor and Board of Trustees, on behalf of the Holly Township Parks and Recreation Commission, for your final review and approval, attached is the recommended budget for the fiscal year 2025-2026 from the Holly Township Parks and Recreation Commission. Per your May 21st, 2025 board meeting, please note that the recommended budget now reflects a new budget column to show the actual budget allocation for fiscal year 2023-2024. As we present the recommended budget for fiscal year 2025-2026, we kindly seek your support and approval to ensure that our programs and initiatives can continue to thrive. This budget represents our concerted efforts to meet the changing needs of our community while maintaining and enhancing the recreational opportunities that are valued by our residents. Sincerely, Mary Blanchard, and copied with our Holly Township Parks and Recreation Commission, Jane Bias DeSessa, Chair, James Wright, Vice Chair, Cindy Earl, Secretary, Jeff Carl, Commissioner, and Joe Hutchins, Commissioner. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Does the board have any questions on the budget that's in front of them? I only have one thing I want to point out, and I'm just so disappointed to see these numbers. This disc golf thing was presented, and it was going to be this wonderful thing for the park, and they projected $6,000 in the 2022-23 budget, and they realized $355.62. The next year they reduced it from $6,000 to $2,500, and they took in $227.93. That's a total, after a projection of $8,500, the reality is we didn't take in $600. And there's a contract that was proposed several years ago that never got finalized, and I think that's a huge disappointment, because I know at the same time, it's my understanding parks have spent somewhere in the neighborhood of $50,000 getting that put in, including the purchase of the $10,000 vehicle. So I just, for myself, that's just, I'm really disappointed to see that in there.
It should be a really good moneymaker.
Well, I just think the lack of the contract and the lack of the agreement is partly responsible for that. It's just greatly disappointing that the taxpayers have been funding that on a promise of one thing and then showing up. That's just, I'm not even sure dismal is the right word to use at that point. But it's a huge disappointment.
In large part, they're a new board, and there are some people
Well,
that
this
are
isn't
on
a
the,
complaint to them, I'm
Yeah.
looking at past.
but there's, I believe one of the individuals has like a marketing sales type background, so perhaps that's something that
Yeah.
could take back to market towards, there's
It's
professional leagues, so
Yeah.
how do we get involved and get a part of that rotation, things like that, so.
It's just the first time, and I know for you being new, it's the first time we've actually seen these numbers.
Yeah.
We've asked them before and never gotten an answer. So I appreciate that it's there.
Well, I would like to say too, it is something that is on our radar, and we are going to be considering it. We recently had a walk to the back of the park, and there are some concerns environmentally as well that we need to address. So we'll be looking into it.
I wanted you to know that I saw it, that I was, be honest with you, I was alarmed when I saw those numbers. I had no idea they were that bad. But I appreciate the transparency and the fact that it's there, and my hope is that we turn that around.
The thing that was recently pointed out to me is the fact that there are some disc golf courses that charge when they use the course. So we may, look into that.
Well, we were told but this is before you, but we were told that was going to happen and that the park was going to receive revenue. And it's clear that while we went on the site and saw what they were charging, they turned in almost nothing.
For like big tournaments and
And,
competitions,
yeah.
not for like your average
They
Joe
were
going
running,
out there by himself.
they were running tournaments, they were charging registration, they were collecting monies. And now when you look and see that this is all that was put in, and I've talked to what do you call her, the controller, the accountant that works with you, and she said the problem was I'd get a check with no explanation. So that's really disappointing. I mean, it almost looks like you could have raised that much by passing the hat. Well, I'm just telling you.
Yeah.
Anyway, that being said, Chair would entertain a motion to approve.
I move to approve Resolution 2025-10 for the 2025-2026 Holly Township Parks budget.
Second.
Motion by Ryan, second by Kinnaman. It's a proposed resolution. Is there any further discussion? None appearing. Can I get a roll call, please?
Kinnaman,
Yes.
Winchester,
Yes.
Ryan,
Yes.
Mattson,
Yes.
McCanny,
Yes.
Wallace.
Yes. Motion carries 6-0.
Great job.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
And take it back to the board and tell them we appreciate the work they put into this.
Yeah.
And along with the transparency.
I just want to thank the board as well for approving our budget. We worked very hard together with our director, and we hear your concerns, and we're working on it, sir. So, thank you.
I can speak for myself. I'm excited to see the things you come up with. All right, thank you. Next item on the under new business, number 6, 2025-2026 Holly Township Budget and Appropriations, proposed resolution 2025-11. We've had the workshops, we've gone over the budget, they're in front of you. I don't know if the board has any more questions.
Yeah, I also provided the changes since April, which was basically, we got the numbers from the county for the assessing. I do note in here that we are looking for alternative options, which I'm sure we'll discuss more when we get to the assessing contract extension on the agenda. So we don't actually anticipate that high of costs in the next 5 years, but that is the cost we were given by the county. And then obviously we didn't have the NACFA information at the time, so this includes the NACFA information as well.
All right, Chair would entertain a motion to approve.
I would make a motion to approve the 2025-2026 Holly Township Budget and Appropriations, proposed resolution 2025-11.
And I will support it. Motion by Winchester, support by Cullis. Any further discussion?
Nope.
Roll call, please. This is your last night. We're going to wear you out on this.
Winchester,
Yes.
Ryan,
Yes.
Mattson,
Yes.
McCanny,
Yes.
Kinnaman,
Yes.
Wallace.
Yes. Motion carries 6-0, and you got another Ryan Mattson
Yep.
in the meeting. There you go.
Mhm.
All right. We will move on to item number 7, Board Policies and Procedure Amendments, Proposed Resolution 2025-12. Let's see you pass that off, Karen.
Well, it actually started started with, wanting to add, fund balance policy. And then I realized over the years, like going back to 2000, that we had some policies and procedures that were outside of these policies and procedures. So we pulled all those in, we made the fund balance policy, and then we updated and did other changes that we thought were necessary. So you
And
see
we-
them all in bold and underlined.
Yep.
And we work closely with the attorney on these as well, correct?
No.
No. Okay. Well, you're working on some policy, some stuff with the attorney, not this. What have we been working on?
What do you mean?
I thought she was, okay. I guess I'll ask the questions outside the meeting. If it has nothing to do with this.
I mean, it seemed like a good portion of them were related to something we had discussed at a previous meeting or two about expenditures that
Yes.
administration to be able to,
Because our hands are tied with
yeah,
it.
with it being at where it's at, the cost of things that, yeah.
Mhm.
And that's,
Yeah,
a lot of it was like
exactly.
the verbiage of how to amend those things. That seemed like majority of the changes, a good
Right.
chunk of them at
And then
least,
just
so.
putting in the fund balance policy, which is
Right.
what we discussed with the board before, like where to put that percentage
Yeah.
at and stuff, just getting it in writing.
Yeah.
Yep. And then, Jen did the nifty,
Table of
index.
contents?
Yeah,
Yeah.
table of contents, so that you can hit it, you know, in there, and it just takes you to the,
It's awesome.
oh, I was like, yes. Super. The little things that make me happy.
So I have a concern with Appendix D in this document has a bunch of definitions of words and terms, and if we bring this on board, I don't agree with some of these definitions and terms, and is that going to latch me into these definitions of terms while I'm operating as a trustee?
So
I think
the-
some of these are,
the
most
class-
of them are actually incomplete and not even appropriate. Why are we defining what the Federal Reserve System is in our procedures and policies document?
So this was part of the investment policy, and it actually comes from like the national like template for best practices for investment policies, so that's where the glossary itself came from.
Okay. But then why do we have a glossary inside of our policies?
It's specifically in the investment policy. All the appendix A through D are appendices to the investment policy.
Okay. And what is that? What is the investment policy then?
So the investment policy, is just like our overall, so we recently amended it to update it to national standards. But it basically sets forth like what we can invest in, our procedures for vetting, like companies before we put money in them and things like that. All like the general terms of what we can, where we can put our money and what we need to do to protect it. And then like the priorities like safety, liquidity and yield in that order, things like that.
And that's for the bonding that we're doing, or is
No,
that?
this is for us, like investing the cash we have.
Okay. So it's more of an informational glossary and not a definition of terms.
Right, yeah, it's for references for things that are in the investment policy.
So like any one of us or public that wants to read it, know what the township can and can't do, they can
Mhm.
understand a little bit better, I think. You know,
Yes.
like someone sees an index, what is that? Oh, well, let me understand a little bit better within outlining what we can and can't do with those terms.
Would you be more comfortable if it just said glossary of terms as opposed to,
No, the whole thing's gotta be
Definition of
reworked.
terms?
It's okay. To be very careful with words and how they're defined, because once you define a word in a contract or a word in a policy, then that word means that in that policy.
Mhm.
There's a bunch of other hoops you can jump through to redefine the term according to your persona or jurisdiction or however you're going to apply this. But it's just interesting that all these terms are in there, and some of them are very flossy definitions. Like,
Well, what are some?
here we are. Okay, I got one mark. It's Federal Reserve System. It's like Federal Reserve System is
What page are you on?
653 of 77. Central Bank of the United States created by Congress, consisting of 7-member board governors in Washington, D.C., 12 regional banks, about 5,700 commercial banks are members of the system. elementary, rudimentary definition of what that system is.
Well, I think that's the point, these definitions are supposed to be not for like people who really.
Right,
work
but
with
if you're
the
gonna-
system, for your everyday Joe.
Okay.
I mean, if we
I
want
just
to rework it,
disagree
we
with
can.
it.
I'll be honest, I didn't write the glossary, that came directly from the national.
Right, so it's just a
template.
copy and paste.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions, comments? Then the chair would entertain a motion.
I would move to approve the board policies and procedures amendment, proposed resolution 2025-12.
Support.
Motion by Winchester, support by Mattson. Any further discussion? None appearing? Get another roll call, Diane.
Ryan,
Yes,
Kinnaman,
Yes.
McCanny,
No.
Mattson,
Yes.
Winchester,
Yes.
Hollis.
Yes. Motion carries 5-1. We move on to number 8, 2024-25 budget amendments, proposed resolution 2025-13.
This
Budget
is,
amendment, was
yeah.
that you or the treasurer?
Well, probably me.
Now you want one.
This is year end. We've brought in, more revenue, and then we pay contractors on percentage of the permits, so we have to increase that in operating expenses as well. We have a person that's redoing all the building files, so we needed to provide for that as well. That's it.
Any questions? Chair would entertain a motion to approve.
I'll make the motion to approve 2024-25 budget amendments, resolution 2025-13.
Is there support?
Support.
Motion by Kinnaman, support by Mattson, to approve the 2024-25 budget amendment, proposed resolution 2025-13. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mattson,
Yes.
McCanny,
Yes.
Kinnaman,
Yes.
Winchester,
Yes.
Ryan,
yes,
Hollis.
Yes. Motion carries 6-0. We move on to number 9, the assessing contract extension, proposed resolution 2025-14. So the county screwed around with this whole assessing contract literally up until the 11th hour. And I told Karen I would have her back on all of the different changes that she had to make in this agenda this week because of those last minute changes and requirements that came through, the last minute changes for the Isaacsons and all of that stuff. We usually try to have that all in there for you for the week, but there's not much you can do when it just seems to keep coming. We are requesting that they give us the 2-month extension. They needed it in writing so that they could take it at board approval as we go forward on looking for an assessing contract. There really wasn't the time to get it all done because they didn't really finish until this past month with what they were doing with the contract. In the meantime, we got the contract, we turned it over to the attorney. She has some issues on it. We need some time to work it out. I have talked to the Lohmeyer, the head of equalization at the county, and they're gonna work with us and work with you. But we need to approve this request for extension for the contract. And we're asking for 2 months.
2 months, yeah.
So I will make a motion to approve that. Is there support?
Support.
So motion by Cullis, support by McCanny?
It was a tie.
It was a tie.
Oh,
so-
okay, so
I mean,
we'll give it to McCanny. All right.
Is there a discount card that we get for the number of times we support? So I don't know, we're looking for like, is there a punch card or something going on? I don't understand.
The most motions get an ice cream at Ziggy's.
I'm feeling that way. I don't understand. I'm falling behind.
Okay, so, motion to approve the
The assessing
I just
contract.
realized it says 2023.
Is that
It
we
is.
had a 3-year contract?
Yeah.
It's the extension on the 2023-2025 assessing contract, proposed resolution 2514. Motion by Cullis, support by McCanny. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
McKinney,
Yes.
Kinnaman,
Yes.
Mattson,
Yes.
Winchester,
Yes.
Ryan,
Yes.
Ellis.
Yes. Motion carries 6-0. Okay? Now, number 10 on the item is Charter Township. Mr. Mattson, you put that on there. I'm gonna let you start.
Yeah, so recently, I'm sure many people are aware, there were some pretty interesting, unfortunate series of events that fell within the village, and I realize that's the village, but villagers are also township residents. There's been a lot of discussion of future cityhood. They just raised 4 mills for a special assessment district. With that, the township residents within the village are getting taxed 46 mills. I'd have to look at the exact between the township and village taxes. There are other townships that are operating on 10 or less with similar or better services. They're just a township. So with there's a strong push for cityhood within the village. I did bring that up at a previous meeting. And so from there will be very big ramifications. If it were to pass, the survey would absorb a lot of township, especially, I mean, we're looking at all the Riverside development, all the work that we're putting in would probably fall within the city range out all the way to the school. North of that, they don't like wonky properties. They would want it a square from my research as far as cityhood. From there, they could uncap the taxes on everyone within the city. They have the right. And then they get to set the mill rate all without a vote of the people if they were to become a city. They would set the rate, whatever else. So that would have very poor ramifications for the municipality here. I think that would be a disservice to the township residents within the village and outside of the village that would become a city. So I think we need to strongly pursue protecting our township residents by becoming a charter township. I would hope at some point the village administration or the legislature there would change their charter to even potentially dissolve the village and we just become a full charter township, because as I mentioned, there are better services at cheaper mill rates for just being a township. I think it needs to happen, not to speak negatively, but the point where they're at in large part was previous administration and councils and whatever that very clearly showed that their budget was in decline and still made poor decisions. Unfortunately, the two sides, at least previously, I don't know the relationship between the current administration here and with the village, cannot play nice together. And I don't think that was from the township's end. We're trying to share resources, trying to share services, and ultimately it's just negatively affecting everyone. Can the discussion be had that the village fire becomes a part of NACFA has come to planning previously that they need another station outside of the train tracks, that our rating is down with our homeowners insurance because they increase fire risk with that. We already have a station on this side of the tracks. Why do we need to build another potential station within the township when we have something there? We can share resources, get those people full-time. There are many options. I think this protects the township and villagers alike. And so I reason I wanted it on new business was for us to potentially vote and make a decision to either research the process, begin the process. I've looked into it a little bit. I am not a strong expert. I know that there's something that we potentially may have had to have done when we got our census back. But I am hoping we can discuss and make a decision to move forward with the process, and that's why I put it under new business. So I know you said you were gonna speak to a little bit on the reports, so.
So we have started looking into that. I've had a preliminary conversation with the attorney. We're looking at some documents out there. I've also been in contact with the Michigan Township Association on that. Chief Weil and I met with both the village manager, Tim Price, and Jeremy Watson on Monday morning to have, at least to begin a conversation with them, because it's been talked about on both sides, and yet nobody had ever sat down at the table. So we had our first meeting there, and we're looking into some of that stuff. So we are aware of what they're doing. As we move forward, I'll have more definitive answers. Just for those of you that are new, and for Karen, who's been here since right after Methuselah left, she can tell you that the village has gone for cityhood 3 times? Twice.
4. I think it's 4.
Pardon?
I think it's 4.
And it's never passed. So they've got some charter issues that they have to look at. Back in the 1980s, the village charged 20 mills. The Headley process has reduced that 20 to 11 point, whatever it is, about 11 and a half. And now they've just added the 4 mills for the special assessment district. There's a sad truth here that when the council, current people sitting on the council, the current village president says, I did make due diligence, we didn't know. All you had to do was read your audits for the last, since 2017. 5 out of 6 years, they operated in it with a deficit, which meant they kept eating away at the fund balance. They've done a strong shift of salaries into the water department to help balance that budget. Then last fall, when they made the decision to build the new village offices, in that meeting, Councilman Kinnaman pushed Clerk Debbie Bigger to explain where the money was coming from, and you can go and watch it on the meeting that's recorded. She sat there and said that over $300,000 of the $500,000 they needed was coming from future funds, expected revenue. When you take money from future funds, that means they're not gonna be there.
Right.
And their deficit
On a
just
budget, they were
happens to be
operating on a
about
deficit
400
for years.
Right.
Pardon?
On a budget that they were operating on a deficit for years, dipping into savings.
Mhm.
So if there was future funds, it would have been there
Well,
already, you know, so.
They
it's-
used $500,000 to build the building, and their deficit's about $400,000. So while they did the millage as a fire and police safety, you might as well say the millage is to have built the new building.
I think if they go and try to do the cityhood thing again, that we should maybe put the same question on, does the village residents want to detach from the village and become part of the
Yes.
township?
You used the term dissolve, but
It's
the legal
detach.
term is detach,
Oh, okay,
Yep.
just so you know.
thank you.
And I can't imagine the Boundary Commission would approve such a large takeover of the township.
Well, that may be
We
why
would
it
not be able,
failed. And from, I'm sorry to interrupt you.
But they can't approve it without voter approval too, so keep
But,
going.
Mr. Hutchins had spoke to it at the town hall, and that was the reason why it had failed at the Boundary Commission, was because it would absorb far too much of the township and put the township in a bad position.
and we wouldn't be able to provide fire and emergency services if they're taking all of our revenue.
Well, and
I mean,
the other problem is, you've got all this new development outside the village boundaries. Those people aren't gonna vote to add 15 mills to their tax bill.
right.
One of those subdivisions came with their HOA and wanted to talk about police services. And we held a meeting, they had about 75 people show up, and Chief Jerry Narsh and myself were there at that meeting, and he talked about police services and what that would look like, and he told them that would be about a $500 cost per home.
Annually.
And that was the last time we've heard.
Annually.
Yep, annual.
Annual.
Mhm.
And that was the last time we heard from them. Now, that would have been a cost of a little under $50 a month, and they were no longer interested.
Mhm.
And if they were no longer interested at that level, I can't imagine how you'd ever convince them to jump for 15 mils.
Well, and yeah, but whether it's feasible or not, we don't know that.
Mhm.
And so it could, you know,
Well,
government
so
changes,
what I'm
surveyors
working on
change,
right now
what people
is to
want
get
change. So if they, you know, who knows, the people that are gonna be through that process may like the idea of a city setting a brand new mill rate at 50 mils and getting more taxes to the county and whatever else. I don't know. I'm just saying, long-term, I think it is what is best for everyone within this community. I will advocate for that. I'll take criticism where if people think, but that is just my belief. I think it's the thing that we need to do when I'm looking at the mill rates and the services that other communities have. We could expand services into the township, whether that would be policing and the fire, and it really be no additional cost, because we would just be serving the same citizens within, but we would have other supports and means and things with that.
So so what we're currently working on is getting specific answers to those questions that have been
Mhm.
raised here this evening.
I do know when I was researching charter townships, I mean, I don't necessarily disagree with the overall premise, but becoming a charter township doesn't stop them from becoming a city. It doesn't detach the village,
Correct.
and it does not stop them from annexing portions, because we do not provide the services required to protect us from those things.
So the only disagreement I have is I believe that it does not allow them to become a city.
No,
Mm-mm.
at least
No, it doesn't.
Doesn't stop them from becoming a city,
It
correct?
offers a little bit of protection, but you have to meet certain requirements,
Which we don't need.
which I haven't evaluated. I trust.
I remember one of
We
them
have
was just
garbage-
providing water and sewer,
Garbage
garbage,
services.
things
and
we
a-
don't, water and sewer, we
yeah.
can't just have.
Right.
We could start providing garbage, we can't just.
But now,
have
there are
water and
other
sewer.
charter townships that do not have water and sewer throughout the entire township.
Yes, and so
But
you
it
know.
has
can
the
make that
protection from
argument.
annexation.
Correct, yes, it's some of those protections, but yes.
George?
Go ahead.
I did just forward you a very good article from Michigan Townships Association that was issued in 2022, which lays out the pros and cons, the how-tos, the what you need. I mean, it's a great, great article as a starting point. So I did just forward that to you, and Karen, if you want to share that,
Yeah.
just to give everybody a little bit of information to get you started.
Okay.
Yeah, and I seconded your motion specifically because I believe that residents need both options.
Yes.
We need to be able to, not because right now I'm saying one is better than the other, but we don't know either at this point. And if the village itself is presenting an option, then there has to be more than one option. And I think we need to do our due diligence as well to present the best case scenario. And in the end, it is up to the people itself, to the voters, what is the best direction for everyone involved. Yes, the village has found itself in quite a predicament at this point. And, part of the reason I pushed some of those finance questions at that time was because I saw that, and why I voted no on the direction
Yeah,
that they
I
were
will give you
pursuing.
credit. I don't mean to interrupt, but you very blatantly called out the issues and everything. So,
Well,
And I think in that process,
Richard did, and so did Amber Kyer.
yes.
yes. And through that process, it did help me see a little bit more that there has to be more than one option to look at here. It's not a one and done kind of something, because even to become a city doesn't solve really long-term problems that are there.
Right.
It just may kick them down the road a little bit, or it may actually exasperate them,
They say it
you know?
does.
And so, there are some communities that are cities that have become cities that are in the same predicament the village is in currently. We are in an economic mess all the way around, and the Headley Amendment and Proposition A have not helped municipalities deal with what has happened since 2008.
Well, there was nothing in that amendment that safeguarded against an economic downturn.
Right.
And that's where the problem is
Yeah.
from that standpoint.
No way for municipalities to make a correction upon
And
that.
the other thing the village
Yeah.
has, a big problem with, and this is what happens when you kick the can down the road. They have a legacy cost of, well, it was $1 million a year. Now, Tim Price said he worked with MERS and got that reduced to $840,000. But nobody on the council asked how he got it reduced or what that reduction means. Does it mean that we're just gonna kick more stuff kick that can down the road again? That's a big reduction from $1,090,000 to $840,000.
Yeah.
And it's wonderful that they got it reduced, but it doesn't tell you what it means. Does it mean we're just gonna pay, because they're somewhere in the neighborhood of 63% funded.
Right.
And Tim Price said that won't take care of itself until 2040. And it's through attrition as retirees, pass away. But at the same time, Jerry Nair stood up and he's got 5 out of 8 officers that are gonna be eligible for retirement in the next 3 years. So as some pass off and come off, you got more going on. So,
In my research, I was just poking around about villages and cities, but once you go to a city level, you can't go back to a village level, and then they're required to provide city, police, fire services. That's a requirement at that point. But you can't demote back to a village, so it'll be an interesting pickle to get themselves into. And go ahead, raise the taxes on all the residents, and they'll just have to leave. And now you're gonna have an empty city with nobody in it, nobody to collect taxes from, and now what are you gonna do?
Mhm.
They already said
That's
no
called
on the
Pontiac.
special assessment.
That's called Pontiac, yeah, or Saginaw, or Flint, or, yeah, it's the same thing.
The
Yeah.
residents said no to the 4 mills at the ballot box,
No,
Well,
they
now they're
said
gonna
no to
enforce
2
it.
mills.
Yeah,
Oh, I
to
thought
2
it was
mills,
4.
yeah.
It's
3 years
two.
ago, it was 2 mills.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, that was 2 mills that the residents said no.
And you
So they
realize
knew
that
the problems
in
existed back then.
right, and that was the attempt to do what they just did. And when I was on village council at that time, we had the option to do it the way they did the other night, and chose to put it on the ballot for the people to make that choice. And they chose not to. So, that was our attempt to make a course correction 3 years ago, and it wasn't able to happen. So it accelerated, actually, the predicament that they found themselves in. And this matter before us right now isn't directly about what the village is dealing with. It is about what do we want to place out there as options as well. And I strongly agree that we need to be looking at that option.
Yep, I agree.
All right. I don't know that needs to be a form of a motion. We've all pretty much agreed and we're working on it.
The only
If
thing
you-
maybe
if
I
you
would
wanna make a
request is
motion,
if we
it's
would
your-
have like some sort of presentation, or if we need to like make a motion to ask legal counsel to come up with like time, I don't know, but I just hopefully we can sooner than later have a presentation
Oh,
of
we
what those
realize,
options
that
are.
it's becoming an urgent
topic.
type, yeah.
Yeah, I actually wouldn't mind it being a motion that requests that we pursue,
Okay,
research,
yeah,
you know, that way, that we actually research this.
yeah, that works.
So I would make the motion that,
Are we all leaving? Oh,
make a motion that we research the possibility of Charter Township and what options that lays out for the residents.
that's your
It's
motion?
That's my motion.
in detachment. Should they pose that question, because it's a little bit.
Sure.
Okay.
I'll amend it to
Okay,
include that.
Thank you.
Is there support?
Support.
Motion by Kinnaman, support by Mattson. Is there any further discussion? Diane, you get a break. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. That brings us to the end of our agenda and to our last public comment. Anyone for public comment? Jane?
Good evening again, Board Trustees. My name is Jane Beistasessa, and I'm a resident of the Village of Holly. Thank you very much for your discussion regarding the possibility of charter and village. I know maybe some of you may know that I did speak concerned about the way this is addressed. You know, I do support the village. I support our police and fire. I strongly believe in them, but I do believe that the residents should have had a say as to raising their millage. 4 mills is a lot, and to do something like that without having a say from the people, I'm beyond discussion. As a public administrator with more than 30 years of experience, I've never done that. The city council has always directed me to go back and make the tough reductions that we need to make in order to do this before we go and increase taxes of that nature. I think the most we even went out to consider taxes would be about 3 mills. And actually the voters wanted us to go up to 4. But again, we fought with them and we said, no, let's stay with 3. We thought it was more reasonable. Again, I understand the village, and I know, as you mentioned, Trustee, all the cities are going through this issue right now. It's a tough decision that everybody has. So having said that, thank you for your comment. Thank you for your concern on that matter. But the real reason I came up here was to congratulate you on the appointment of a planner. I know that it's just a start in terms of having this individual work for you for half a day or whatever, but what a start. It is a proactive motion, and I think it's also one that shows that the township is progressing and you're doing well. And to begin at that phase is excellent. As a city manager, I know that planning is something that's very critical. And I was one of the few cities that actually hired a full-time planner, and our city grew. It's so important to have that. So congratulations, thank you for doing that. I think that's excellent. And then lastly, I worked with McKenna and Associates in the past, and they're, at least the time that I worked with them in the various cities that I did, they did an excellent job. So again, it's just a remark, a comment based on my experience. So congratulations on doing that, and thank you. I did express my appreciation to, is it Alexa or Alexis? Alexis. And because she's good up for a lot of work, but planning is so important for a community, and we as public administrators, we take that for granted, and there's so much work to do. So thank you for doing that. Congratulations. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anyone else for public comment? Mary?
Mary Blanchard, 3444 Old Creek Drive, Holly, Michigan. And I just wanted to let the board know that I am on the Citizen Advisory Work Group, state level with MPART, regarding PFAS issues. Last week, we had a meeting where the Eagle director, Phil Roos, appeared, And one of the questions, he did invite questions prior to the meeting, and I asked him when Holly Township is going to get a town hall regarding the Falk Road dump and the investigation that has gone on. There has been $400,000 of state funding that has gone into investigating on and off the Falk Road dump. And he told me that he was going to have a colleague at that meeting. There was a person who came on who is apparently our new site lead, and he told me that the contractor for Eagle did do some work this year, and they have requested to do more work, and apparently that has been granted. However, as far as a town hall meeting, they have put that off again. It will be at least until December of this year that they will have any report put together regarding the activity. And I would just like to say I find that absolutely unacceptable, because there are other communities that get town halls on a regular basis, some even on a monthly meeting. And I think Holly Township deserves to know the residents of what's happening at the dump and even around the dump. Phil Roos has been presented information, particularly by Stacy Taylor, who has gone to different conferences and handed him packets of paperwork. And he admitted in a COG meeting that he is aware that there are other options, other problems, not just the dump. And we are not getting any satisfaction. I have asked the board to try and help in this regard. Our group has put on multiple meetings. Our politicians have only done one, and that was Ruth Johnson back February 6th, 2020. And we need more options, we need more information, and we would appreciate any kind of help that the board can give to that. Thank you.
Have we been in touch with Mike Moon's office? Have they been any help?
We are-
Actually, it's Mike Mueller's office, but Mike Moon is the contact.
Mike Moon is Representative Mueller's aide. The last contact I had with Mike Moon is that he promised again that they were going to have a meeting specifically in May of this year where they were inviting the EPA, Eagle, and other entities, including politicians, up to the national level, where they were going to look into getting funding to actually properly cap the dump. That meeting didn't happen. I understand that now they are possibly looking into July, but I can say that over the last 3 years, we've been promised meetings probably 6 times, and they have not come to fruition. And it's very frustrating.
You mentioned the meeting on February of 2020. That's the one where we all went to Lansing. And
Correct.
that's the meeting that Ruth had, all right?
Which was strictly an informational meeting. And when I followed up with Senator Johnson's office over months, they never got a response from Eagle. And to a certain extent, that was understandable because that was right at the height of COVID. And so a lot of people were in scramble mode of what they were doing. And that's when Eagle employees went to their homes and were working. Most Eagle employees are still working from home, and that also makes it really difficult to get information. Not that Eagle employees don't respond, I don't mean that at all, because we have had really good response from some Eagle employees, but to actually walk into an office and get information is not possible. Even as far as like maps and information on hydrology and things like that, it's really difficult to do that.
You know, a couple of years ago, we had sent a letter to them and we didn't get any response, and I finally got, Etheridge, what's her first name?
Kim?
Kim Etheridge. And I said, you never even responded to my letter. She said, oh, well, I didn't get it. I said, well, I sent it, it didn't come back. She said, well, it's probably on the desk, we're just having it in the office. And I thought, so any letters that go there just land on a desk, and because there's nobody there, we're not addressing them? And she said, well, you can send it via email. And I said, well, I sent a letter and the letter in an email. And I didn't get a response to either one. Well, I'll have to look for it, and I never did get a response. But,
Sure.
okay, so, all right, thank you for your comment.
George, perhaps maybe try reaching out to Lana Theus.
Yep, I'm gonna reach out to Lana and Mike Mueller both.
She's been pretty responsive to folks that I know, so.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else for public comment? Lieutenant?
Yeah, hold on, sorry for interrupting earlier, I wasn't paying attention. So you got the right spelling. My name is Brett Beardsley, I'm the post commander for the MSP Metro North Post. We cover 9 townships in Oakland, Macomb County, and Holly Township is one of those townships. Just wanted to introduce myself. I got promoted in December. I was here before for 3 years as assistant post commander. I went up to Flint, worked on a dope team for a little bit, and now I'm lucky to be back. I live over in Clarkston, so I'm pretty close. Any questions, concerns you ever have, just anything going on in the township supervisor has my contact, feel free to reach out. We have all kinds of resources, and I'm happy to deploy those anytime we need.
I just want to tell you, first time in 8 years that we've had somebody from the
I
state.
shouldn't have said that I was here for 3 years in the past, because that makes me look bad.
Well, and I told you, I said, when you introduce yourself tonight, I said, I know that name. It's because I hear Jerry Nurse talk about it.
Yeah.
And that's why I heard the name. But I do want to appreciate it. We've had, right now, we're in pretty good shape. We had some issues for a while there when we had some threats in the office. We were on lockdown for a couple of days. We had somebody literally come in with a letter and said, don't do this, I'm gonna shoot you, kind of stuff.
Wow.
So we had some issues going around, but I appreciate seeing you here.
Yeah, glad to be here.
You have incredible patience.
Oh, I'm not hourly, I'm salary now.
Oh, no.
Congrats on the promotion.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
well done.
All right, thank you. Anyone else for public comment? All right. There are no other remarks. I'm gonna go ahead and close this meeting at 8:47.
I just-